Hi, and welcome back. So, have you ever skipped breakfast or pushed it back, say, afternoon? What if I told you that this could now be a red flag, not just for your diet, but also for your life expectancy? A new 34-year longitudinal study has shown that the later you eat your first meal of the day, the higher your risk of dying early. But is this cause, or is it a symptom? Today we're going to dissect the science, challenge the claims, and ask the questions that no one else seems to have asked about this new study. Now, I found this study particularly interesting because I eat breakfast, so my first meal of the day, sometime after 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Let's get into it. Now, the time of day that we eat our meals, we know will affect our body's functioning. That said, our body's condition could also determine when and why we may be craving food. Data was collected from 2,945 adults who lived in Newcastle and Manchester, and these are two cities in the north of England in the UK. This data was collected sometime between 1983 and 2017. The participants were aged between 42 and 94 when they signed up to take part in this particular study. Their information was collected through optional questionnaires covering their health, their lifestyle, and also their eating habits. The study revealed that the volunteers tended to eat their breakfast and their dinner later and later in the day as they got older. It also showed they reduced their eating window too. These later eating times were linked to poorer physical health and also poorer mental health. When it came to all-cause mortality, that's the likelihood of dying for any reason, the researchers found a significant link between eating breakfast later in the day and a higher mortality risk. For each hour that breakfast was taken later in the day, the chance of dying during the study period went up by between 8 and 11%. Nutritional scientist Hassan Dashti from the Harvard Medical School said, "Our research implies that changes in when older adults eat, especially the timing of their breakfast, could serve as an easy to monitor marker of their overall health status." Now, the researchers tracked eating times of people as they got older. Now, the researchers aren't saying that eating breakfast later is going to cause you to die at an earlier age, or that shifting your breakfast forward by a few hours will guarantee that you get an extra few years added on to the end of your life. In fact, they suggest the relationship is likely to be driven in the other direction. As we get older and the greater number of health problems that we have start to mount up and increase in severity, this means an earlier death could well be more likely and may also cause us to have later breakfast times. Poorer health leading to a lack of sleep is one way that this may play out, especially for those who tend to sleep badly, especially when these people are older and have no need to get up for work or perhaps to look after a family. These people who have poorer sleep may also find it difficult to get up and or stay in bed longer. This then pushes back their breakfast time. Reduced physical health also means that many tasks, that includes making a healthy breakfast, may also take longer too. Hassan Dashti from the Harvard Medical School said, "Up until now, we had a limited insight into how the timings of meals evolve later in life and how this shift relates to overall health and longevity." He went on to say that our findings help fill the gap by showing the later the meal timing, especially a delayed breakfast, is tied to both health challenges and an increased mortality risk in older adults. One way the study's findings may be more useful is in identifying the older people who might be at more risk in terms of their health and also their longevity. It also gives us a much greater understanding of how changes in eating habits may affect younger people when compared to older people. The world's population is aging overall, meaning a larger proportion of the total number of people living on the planet is now much older. This makes it increasingly more important to spot and interpret all these kinds of patterns. Between 2015 and 2050, the world's population aged 60 and over is projected to nearly double from about 12% to 22%. This is according to the World Health Organization. Globally, the proportion of people aged 65 and above rose from 6.9 in the year 2000 to 9.3 in the year 2020. It's projected to reach around 15.9% by 2050. This is according to PubMed Central. And between 1974 and 2024, the share of the global population aged 65 almost doubled from 5.5% to 10.3%. This was reported by the United Nations Population Fund. Hassan Dashti from the Harvard Medical School closed by saying, patients and clinicians can possibly use shifts in mealtime routines as an early warning sign to look into underlying physical and mental health issues. Also, encouraging older adults to have consistent meal times could become part of the broader strategy to promote healthy aging and also longevity. The one thing the study didn't mention was what older people eat, and I think this is key. As people age, their dietary needs and their habits very often shift due to changes in their metabolism, their digestion issues, mobility, and their overall health. One of the most noticeable shifts is the tendency to choose foods that are more easy to digest. Aging slows down our gastrointestinal function, and issues like reduced stomach acid, constipation, or acid reflux can make high fiber or fatty foods an uncomfortable choice. As a result, older adults may gravitate towards simpler, softer meals like white rice, white bread, mashed potato, or canned soups. These foods are gentle on the stomach but are often stripped of all their nutrients. Additionally, ease of preparation also becomes a key factor. Also, arthritis, fatigue, or limited mobility can make cooking a physically demanding task. Ready-to-eat meals, frozen dinners, or toast with ultra-processed spreads can become a common choice because they require minimal effort. However, these convenience foods can come at the cost of nutrition. Highly processed foods are often low in protein, fiber, and essential vitamins, while being high in sodium, sugar, and unhealthy fats. Over time, this shift towards ease and comfort can lead to deficiencies in key nutrients like vitamin B12, iron, and also protein. These are all factors critical to maintaining muscle mass, immune function, and also cognitive health. A conscious effort is needed to balance simplicity with nutrition when it comes to aging diets. Another factor to consider is that this was a longitudinal study. A longitudinal study is a research method that involves observing the same group of individuals repeatedly over an extended period of time. This approach allows researchers to detect developments, patterns, and long-term effects, again, across a long time period, making it especially valuable in fields such as medicine, psychology, aging, and also education. As with this study, the researchers could follow participants for decades to assess how lifestyle choices impact, for example, cognitive decline, or how childhood experiences influence adult mental health. By tracking real-life changes, longitudinal studies can establish cause and effect relationships more effectively than cross-sectional studies. Now that sounds great, but there are obviously several limitations and drawbacks to longitudinal studies. When a longitudinal study relies solely on questionnaires, as this one did, without independent monitoring or validation, several significant drawbacks do arise. Firstly, self-reported data is inherently vulnerable to bias. The participants could intentionally or unintentionally provide inaccurate responses due to memory lapses, misunderstanding the question, or social desirability bias. This means reporting what they think is expected rather than what was true. Over time, this can seriously compromise data accuracy and reduce the study's overall reliability. Also, without independent oversight, there's no mechanism to verify the authenticity of the responses or detect patterns of inconsistency, exaggeration, or indeed neglect. Participants may also become less engaged or careless when it comes to follow-up questionnaires, especially in long-term studies leading to what we call data fatigue. Remember, this study was conducted for 34 years. Now, how many of those people would have kept the same level of diligent record keeping for the duration of the study? This creates a risk of missing or poor quality data that cannot be cross-checked against objective measures like physical exams, biomarker tests, or professional observations. Also, if the participants drop out or fail to complete questionnaires regularly, the resulting erosion may distort the final outcome. Without independent monitoring, the researchers may also miss important contextual changes in the participants' lives. These are things such as health conditions, medication changes, or major life events. These can affect the study's outcome, but are not captured in a static survey. In essence, relying exclusively on self-reported questionnaires reduces the depth, objectivity, and the scientific rigour of the longitudinal research. Let me know what you think about this study. I think there are far more confounding factors that really need to be considered. I think to say moving breakfast later in the day resulting in poor physical and mental health is a bit of a stretch. So there are many other variables I think that need to be addressed. Things like total number of hours that were slept, the type of food that was eaten throughout the day, and how active the participants actually are. Then we look at things like alcohol consumption, smoking habits, and their exercise regimens, and many more things to consider too. I'm guessing the majority of the participants weren't eating a whole food diet. They weren't finishing their dinner before 6 p.m. and going to bed before 10 and getting at least 7 hours good quality sleep. Let me know what you think in the comment section below.